This is the John Batchelor Show. Good evening to you. Gordon Chang of Forbes.com joins me tonight. Gordon, a very good evening to you. The speech by the President today in Brussels to the European Union, the concern immediately was Russian aggression in Crimea, the potential for Russian aggression in eastern Ukraine, in Transdniester, a breakaway region of Moldova, Russian aggression in the eastern Europe. However, you and I both know that on the minds of the Europeans and the President of the United States, as well as Vladimir Putin, is a great big country in East Asia. These last days, China's been present for these very troubled negotiations in Europe by the G7 and now by the EU. Xi Jinping, the president of China, was present in The Hague while not a member of G7. He's G20. He was present in The Hague and had a conference with the president of the United States while the president is meeting with the G7. The puzzle here is, what is China's presence meaning? At the Security Council vote some days ago, which was meant to condemn Russia for its aggression, China voted to abstain, while 14 votes were negative, I believe, or 13 votes were negative, to sanction Russia, and one veto known as Russia. But China abstained, and some have taken strength from that. See, China's not with Russia. Xi Jinping is sitting with the President of the United States, ostensibly to talk about undiplomatic problems in East Asia. We've spoken of them, and we will again tonight. Why was Xi Jinping there? Why is the President of China there? Why did China vote abstain? What does it mean for Moscow?
Well, Xi Jinping was in The Hague because this was the Nuclear Security Summit, and there had not only the G7 and many Western countries, but also China to talk about securing loose nuclear weapons and loose fissile material. Now, the thing is, the president got Belgium, Italy, and Japan to surrender some fissile material. Well, that's a start, and we have to applaud the president for that. But nonetheless, Belgium is not going to explode a nuclear device in Manhattan, which is President Obama's number one concern. Now, with regard to China and Crimea, well, China is supporting Russia. Now, it did vote to abstain in the Security Council, but you got to remember that Putin is attacking the number one cardinal principle of China when it comes to foreign policy, which is territorial integrity. And despite that, despite the fact that Putin is undermining China, China could not vote against him. And the reason is that these two countries are forming a durable partnership against the West.
And that durable partnership has a name. It was founded in 2001. It's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It includes smaller states in Central Asia, the Stans, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan. It has observers, Iran, Mongolia, India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. However, the puzzle here is China working with Russia? Is this a partnership? There are voices on both sides of that. What do you measure now? What are you watching?
Well, I think it certainly is going to be a partnership. It has been since 2001. There are, of course, historical antagonisms between Moscow and Beijing, but we also got to remember that over the long course, China has been supporting Russia. So, for instance, we saw China join with Russia's 3 vetoes over the Syrian civil war. They were working very closely on a number of other issues, and both of them are supporting the Iranian dictatorship, right, especially when it comes to nuclear weapons. So, over the course of events, since the beginning of this century, clearly Moscow and Beijing are on the same page because they have the same interest, they believe, and that is opposing the United States and the rest of the international community.
The economy. The economy for China is the same as security for China. These are not separate spheres where they have different voices in each. This all comes together in the Chinese Communist Party. Gordon has taught me these many years that the Chinese Communist Party has a devil's bargain with the people of China. We'll give you GDP growth and jobs and a future for your children. You'll give us obedience, or at least don't fuss too much. Okay. Now that works as long as there's growth. Now we're talking about Chinese security, not only for the Chinese Communist Party, the dictatorship, but for the Chinese people. These last weeks, Gordon, there have been odd events. Most recently, there was a bank run, a small bank. We've had downgrades or at least reduction in GDP growth by all the major banks in the region. We also have doubts raised about the Chinese manufacturing. It's chiefly an export economy, and the number keeps coming in under 50. Does this weaken? Does this move Xi Jinping when he's talking to other nations? Does he have to worry about the domestic problem and has no power to project?
I think right now most countries believe that China is going through a slowdown, but it's not systemic, that they'll be able to get through it by May or June. And so therefore Xi Jinping is able to have this aura around him. But, it's much more serious than that, John, because what we have seen in the first 3 months of this year is a very severe slowdown in manufacturing. The manufacturing sector is contracting. We have seen prices decline. We've seen weakness in the domestic sector. And we're starting to see these defaults and bank runs. And these are the initial signs that China is at the point where people are losing confidence. It's very interesting that these bank runs over the last 2 or 3 days, which have now affected 2 banks, are really because of a lack of confidence in the overall economy itself. And that's clear from the comments of depositors who've been trying to withdraw their money. They say, oh, this bank may be okay, but the economy is in serious trouble. Once that perception spreads throughout the country, and I think we're very close to there's nothing the Communist Party can do to rescue the economy.
There is, however, pressure at home. Always pressure at home when people are worried about their money, their assets, their future, their jobs. There's not massive joblessness in China because Gordon's taught me it doesn't work that way. There are too many migrant workers. There's too much movement all the time. There are people living in dormitories and then they go home to their villages. You can't really tell. But at this point, Gordon, I want to stay with this theme of China in the world. Is Xi Jinping aware that he does not have a strong pedestal? It's fine that he's treated as if he represents the future of the 21st century, but he's aware that things are not well at home. Does he think this is a phase? Does he think he'll ride it out? Or does he think that he has to take some dramatic action?
Well, it's really hard to say what he actually thinks, but I do think that he's starting to understand the fragility of his own economy. What he's been trying to do over the last 3 or 4 months is gain more control over economic reform, which is absolutely crucial if China is to have a future of growth. And I think he's doing that because he understands that if he doesn't do this, if he's not able to make the fundamental changes that everyone wants, that the story is over. Now, that's just a guess on my part, but he has got to understand the real issues. Very interestingly, Chinese officials are now talking about the problem with jobs. Official numbers on jobs are very glowing, which means to me that they understand how bad the job situation is in urban China.
Final question. Was Beijing caught unaware when Putin made his move? Do you think that this surprised them, that they were not prepped for it?
I think they understood what was going on. There's been a lot of Chinese diplomacy with regard to Ukraine over the last 3 or 4 months, including some statements of support. I think that essentially the Chinese leaders knew something was going to happen. They may not have known exactly what was going to occur, but they knew something was up.
Gordon Chang of Forbes.com. There's more to China to come. This time we're going to speak to surprising conduct in Taiwan. This is the core interest of the Chinese. The Chinese military has made it very clear that they want Taiwan back. There's protest in Taiwan. It's a democracy. It's a republic. It's a transparency. It practices media. And now it's got protesters that go to the heart of the question of China and Taiwan in the future. Gordon Chang, I'm John Batchelor.